Hello, guys, and welcome to August's webinar. Thank you, everyone, for signing up and joining us. As mentioned in the email this month, we're going to be discussing everything green season, and that means the rainy season in Costa Rica. We got a bunch of questions. We're also going to talk about deals. We're going to go over some of the great wildlife that you can see here, and there's an awful lot. We've got a great panel of guests today. So let me introduce you to Lucia Passuello. Lucia, thanks for coming.
Thank you for having me.
And Emma Lasiuk, good to have you as well, Emma. How are you doing?
Thank you. I'm doing super well. Thank you for having us.
An absolute pleasure. And of course, you guys remember Pablo Franceschi working with us in marketing. He's our moderator again today. How's it going, Pablo?
Good. Thank you for having me. Thank you for being here, everybody.
As ever, guys, please don't forget to get your questions in directly to us. So we're going to have a big Q&A session in about 45 minutes to an hour, more or less. You can ask us anything you like. If you're coming to Costa Rica and have questions, let us know. If you're thinking about traveling to this part of the world, all your questions are welcome. There's a little Q&A function and there's a chat box, which you can open up and hopefully start conversations as well. We have a couple of moderators who are answering questions directly for you guys today. One of them is Aaron Vanacek, a senior travel manager at Costa Rican Vacations, as well as Rachel Peck, who was on our webinar for last month. So please get your questions in. We'll answer them live, and then at the end, we'll go back to some of these FAQs, these live Q&As, I should say, and get straight back to you. So without further ado, let's get into the webinar. We're going to discuss, as I mentioned, the green season. So the smartest question to kick us off, Lucia, when is the green season exactly? And what do we mean? Why is it called the green season?
So green season is usually around April to November. We call it the green season because it just showers basically 30 minutes to 1 hour in the afternoon. Mornings tend to be super sunny, but it's different from the dry season, which is December through March, that it doesn't rain during that time, technically. It could always rain, it's the rainforest, but that's what's called the green season versus the dry season.
I think some people, I've obviously been working myself a long time in marketing. The term green season, I think, was coined to avoid the idea of rainy season, around the tropics, around the world, right? Obviously, it's incredibly lush. You've got it after a lot of rainfall or even a little bit of rainfall, May, June, July, August. There's a lot more vegetation. Everything's a bit greener than it normally is, even in the country. Emma, is that kind of the answer that you give to people like question green season? Do they know what it means? Do they use the term rainy season?
Yeah, you get the question a lot, like, what is green season? I think you guys both said it perfectly. It's when the country becomes its luscious, greenest self. Even now, like you said, like the end of August, like I live in San Jose, which may not like be thought of as like the rainforest, but even here, the parks, the greeneries, even by the mountains here are becoming super lush and green. So yes, you can definitely see the difference versus like what our dry season, where it is, pretty brown, it's pretty hot, it's sunny all day. We're now experiencing some afternoon showers, which are very welcomed. So yeah, it's a beautiful time of the year to visit. Anytime, I would say, even starting now until like middle November is what I would call like green season.
Yeah, 100%. I'm also based in San Jose. And I think for those of us that live here, it's quite funny. You hear the guys cutting grass, far more common, from like May, June, July. Then it's like every couple of weeks, all the grass, because it just grows so quickly. Lucia, whereabouts are you joining us from?
I'm from San Jose as well, so we are fairly all in San Jose. And I certainly agree with the fact that, the country gets a much more lush during the green season. I actually get like a couple of toucans that seem to be like a pair singing always outside of my window, but just in the green season. They go away in the dry season somewhere else.
It's a really good point. It's really easy to forget that even though San Jose, is a city of nearly 1 million people in the Central Valley, and the urban sprawl is larger, we're still in the tropics. I mean, after the pandemic, the sounds of the cicadas, they come straight in front of me in a little ravine down by the river, really loud, but still really tropical, especially when it's raining, right? So having toucans here, that's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the weather really like, Lucia, during this time of year? So if we talk specifically kind of September, October, November, even late August, if you want to push it, like you mentioned, Emma, mid to late November, we have the end of the transition. What does that mean? And how do you break that question down?
Well, basically, usually you get sunny mornings and maybe rainy afternoons, but that means rainy for like 30 minutes to 1 hour. It will probably shower strongly, like it's not a light shower, but it'll only last like 30 minutes to 1 hour. Sometimes it doesn't even rain, it just gets cloudy sometimes. Other times you don't even get clouds. If you're lucky, you get a beautiful sunset. But if it does rain, it tends to be quick. It doesn't, last too long. It's not like it showers for 4 hours, so it's still easy to enjoy activities. Still here in Costa Rica, the sun starts coming down at around 4:30 p.m. and by 6 p.m. it's dark. So, everyone here does things early in the morning, so it really doesn't affect your ability to explore the country and get out and about.
Yeah, I think it's a really good point as well. We're going to talk a little bit more later about which regions are best in terms of where you are, because it does vary a lot in the country. And if you do want to avoid more wet weather, there are other places to go to. Obviously, as you mentioned, the rainforest, right? There are specific regions in the country where it may rain all year round at any given point, but it's never particularly super heavy. I mean, what are we now? The 29th of August. Yesterday was a scorching hot day all day in San Jose, Central Valley.
Yeah.
And even today, it starts really, really beautifully. So it's not that it's every day. It's not like you're going to come and definitely experience just endless rain. Maybe you will be unlucky and there's torrential rain because of a certain weather pattern, right? But it's one of those things to kind of debunk the idea that it's just raining all the time. Like you say, you get really nice weather in the morning for most parts of the country, some perhaps others. I'm going to send you guys a couple of links as we go in the chat. So we've got a couple of videos on our channel. So I'm going to send you some weather links and rainy links so you guys can click on it whenever you like. But moving on to terms of wildlife, you mentioned toucans arriving into the Central Valley. When we say, Emma, that it's a great time of year to come to see wildlife and everything's in bloom, what do we mean? Is there specific like inside the season, August to like late November, for specific wildlife that you recommend?
Absolutely. So I'll touch on that in a moment, but I think in general, like wildlife here during the rainy season is fantastic because even mammals where you might think like, oh, maybe we won't see them, they're coming out as well because the sun isn't that scorching hot sun that they're hiding from during the day. So going to like the national parks, like you'll find that you can actually see wildlife later into the day. So even like into 11 a.m., 12 p.m. when other times they might actually be hiding. So all in all, like wildlife is fantastic during this time. But of course, like a lot of people, when they think of wildlife during rainy season, the main two things that come to mind are whales and sea turtles. So those are kind of the two things that we get asked about the most. Like, we really want to see sea turtle. It's been a dream of mine, like specifically hatching. So the hatches are going to happen anytime between like late August, early September into early November. So that's a fantastic time when they do like the hatch and release. So that's actually seeing the baby sea turtles running towards the ocean, which I know is on a lot of people's bucket list. So that is definitely something you can do here. The nestings are in our earlier kind of rainy season. So from like June, July would be the nesting period. And then whale watching, which is actually super popular between end of July, early August until about November. Specifically in the southern zone. So kind of in the Osa area or Uvita, that kind of part of the country is fantastic for it.
Awesome. Yeah. And whale watching is a real big deal for a lot of people because it's not everywhere that you can do this. And every time I've been on the ocean and you see these mainly humpback whales are common, it's quite impressive. If I wanted to do whale watching, Emma, whereabouts would I go more or less? Where's some of the highlights or the more likely chance to see them?
Definitely the central and southern Pacific. So we're talking about anywhere from like even, we'll say Manuel Antonio down to Uvita and then all the way down into the Osa Peninsula. So that's really going to be your top point when you're looking to come during the rainy season months. During dry months, you can also see them up north in Guanacaste, but specifically during rainy season, you want to kind of be in the central southern Pacific. And kind of like what you said, Adam, like, I don't know, I'd always heard about whale watching. I was like, yeah, that's cool, whatever. I mean, it's beautiful. I went and I was like, I had no words. How like majestic and big they are in real life. It like the photos, the videos don't do it justice.
Yeah, it's really hard, especially obviously we work with a lot of videos. Me and Pablo tried to film whales unless they're really, really breaching and then they're going to do the dive and you see the amazing tail fin at the end. It is challenging because you just kind of pip at the top. I've actually got a link here, so in case you want to read into it a little bit more on our site about whale watching, it is an amazing experience. Obviously, if you do happen to get close to them, it is quite something. And as you mentioned, Lucia, in terms of turtles, Tortuguero is probably the place you kind of want to be on the Caribbean side, right? The northern Caribbean side, in terms of actually, you know, being on the beach. Have you done that yourself, Lucia, yet?
I have. I recently went to Tortuguero actually for a fishing trip. And we were in turtle season. So we got to do the turtle nesting tour where you go at night, you go into the national park and you see how the turtles come in from the ocean and like make holes in the sand and put their eggs in, cover it up, and then carry themselves back to the ocean. It's a really cool experience. You can hear them breathe, how tired they are from carrying their bodies all the way from the ocean, finding the perfect spot to hide from, you know, other predators in the area, because that's an area that has a lot of national park too. It's very abundant in wildlife up there too. And so they find a safe spot to put the turtle eggs and then go back into the ocean. Really beautiful.
Love it. Love it. I'm going to keep sending you links. So I can see a couple of questions coming in. We've got a question from Claudia. Claudia Kennedy, thanks for getting your message in. I'm going to save these questions for the Q&A session after the chat. We might have a connection issue with the ability for our offline moderators to actually answer your questions, but don't worry, I will keep tabs on the questions and bring them live to our panelists in a little bit. So please keep your questions coming in. Guys, in terms of outdoor activity, some questions that we get asked a fair bit, Emma, is if I am coming in the off season and it's really heavy, the rain, how does that affect my outdoor activities during the rain season? Can I still do them? And how does that compare? Say I'm going hiking or maybe zip lining or a national park or even whitewater rafting. What's the way we address that?
Yeah, so obviously it depends like what tour you're doing. So if it's a super rainy day and even some lightning and thunder, like you're not going to be on a catamaran in the ocean. That's just the way it is for that time of the year. But there's so many other tours that you can still continue to do, specifically ones like you mentioned, zip lining, hanging bridges. I have done those in the pouring rain and I love it. I've done them in clear weather. I've done it in pouring rain. I've had fun both times. They're different experiences. Obviously, you have to be prepared. But they still go on as long as it's safe. And for the most part, they are always going to be safe unless there's thunder and lightning, in which case the tour companies are obviously, you know, very mindful of that and will put your like safety as a priority. You can continue to do anything as long as you have an open mind and, you know, you're here to enjoy Costa Rica. So I would say don't let that stop you from booking tours and excursions. On top of it, like something like rafting is even better in the rainy season, especially if you're an adrenaline junkie. The river like tides are high, so there's lots of rapids. It's super fun. Another one is like ATVing. During the rain, it's muddy, it's fun, like that's what you want to do, right? So there's actually tours that I prefer during the rainy season. So speaking to one of your like consultants or guides, they'll kind of let you know what they recommend.
Awesome.
Also, surfing is better in
Yeah,
the rainy season.
was gonna say that too. Surfing swells are better during the rainy season.
Yeah, really, really good points. I remember doing an ATV and it was raining, and you do get absolutely covered. So we'll get to packing in a little bit, but that's a really good point. I think it's worth mentioning that sometimes we get asked about the hurricane season, obviously September time. It's really rare because Costa Rica is farther enough south. They don't really get affected. I've been here for nearly 20 years and it only happened once where there was a hurricane that was actually going across Nicaragua and it touched on the border. And like you mentioned, a couple of the activities at that point were kind of, you know, basically they were either closed or they were looking at the situation as to how serious the rain was. But of course, then we're super flexible with the companies as well, right? So if you obviously don't get to do a tour and you can't replace it, you know, a reimbursement would certainly happen if you booked a vacation with CRV. Yeah, no, great answers. Again, not really much of an issue. Plus, if you are down here when it's raining, it's part of the fun, right? It's part of the experience. It's you're in the rainforest. When you see an absolute tropical downpour, it's something else. Obviously, you don't want it to be the case the whole time. Well, why don't we talk a little bit about packing recommendations? Emma, how would you say that it changes in terms of maybe you're coming at Christmas or the high season when you see drier weather? Are there any extra amenities or things that you would consider packing in the green season?
Yeah, so obviously the number one thing is going to be like rain gear, rain clothing. However, what I always tell my clients is like, don't confuse the rain with it being cold. Like you need breathable rain gear. My first time here, I brought like all the wrong ponchos. And so you're in the rain and you're sweating and it's not comfortable. Like the weather here is still hot for the most part. So really breathable clothing that is water resilient is perfect. That would be my number one. Another thing that people sometimes forget about is bug repellent. So, you know, we do tend to get some more mosquitoes, especially during rainy season. Not so bad. I like bugs love me, but here in Costa Rica, I'm okay. I don't know what it is. But during dawn and dusk, you have to just be a little bit more careful. We do tend to have a little bit more mosquitoes. So definitely bring a bug repellent that works for you. Make sure that, you know, it's one that you've used before and that you feel like works really well, just so that you can kind of avoid any, you know, any mosquitoes that are around during that time. Other than that, like I would say it's pretty similar. You still want your bathing suits, you still want your, you know, your beach clothing, you still want any like pants or long sleeve shirts you would wear for hikes. All of that can stay the same.
Awesome. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Lucia, do you have any add-ons? Any little?
Yeah, just Costa Rica is a pretty casual country. You know, a lot of people always ask me as well, like, how formal or casual should I dress to go out to dinner or lunch? Costa Rica is super casual, you know, so you no need to go super formal here. People here wear t-shirts and shorts, light pants, and you know, just to also piggyback on what Emma was saying, just you know, if you're going to do like water activities and be in hiking and stuff like that, you know, clothing that dries easy is also, you know, a good to bring too.
Yeah, it's a good point. There are very few hotels that have dress codes. There's a couple of high-end five-star options. I'm thinking Four Seasons, perhaps Andaz with one of their restaurants, the Springs Resort in Arenal. There's a couple of things where you wouldn't necessarily be accepted in flip-flops and board shorts, perhaps. But yeah, long pants and maybe a nice t-shirt for sure. But yeah, I think you made a good point, Emma, that it is so hot. And like you say, Lucia, the really light clothes in terms of layers help, because obviously if it is raining and the rain stops and then the sun comes out, you're talking about even a 10-degree shift occasionally with clouds, no clouds, rain, water. You need it to dry quickly. Yeah, you never know, right? Even if you go out and it's really nice and sunny, half an hour later, you could be somewhere in a forest and bang, you know, down comes the rain. So it is good to be prepared. What about in terms of hiking shoes? And the reason I ask is a lot of people sometimes ask, should they be hiking like tennis shoes? How does that over real big high ankle boots that are heavy and maybe fully waterproof, but really hot? Lucia, what's your go-to response?
Well, during the rainy season, it is nicer to have like hiking boots or shoes, something that has a bit more of grip. I have fallen several times, slipped in the mud, you know, just normal. During the dry season, I usually just wear my normal sneakers, you know, like exercise sneakers, because it's not as slippery and it's easy to walk around. But during dry season, I would recommend maybe something that has a little bit more grip. Also for like water activities, you know, if you're into rafting, you know, like water shoes are always nice, something that you can, you know, get wet and it dries easy again, but also has some nice grip too.
Yeah, I agree. Emma, are you a high ankle or are you a low tennis hiking shoe kind of girl?
I should be a high ankle. Like Lucy, I've had my fair share of slips and trips. Haven't learned my lesson yet, but my recommendation would be yes, during rainy season, something with a little bit more grip is definitely helpful. Another thing, like kind of to piggyback off of what you guys are saying, like again, with things getting wet, I always try to recommend like 2 pairs of like non-flip-flop shoes. So like a really common one is like Chacos, like something that, you know, if you go rafting, if you're going to hike the waterfall, like maybe you don't need the sneakers, but you still like need something that can get a little bit wet. And then if you wear the sneakers and it rains, sometimes they need 24 hours to dry here because it is quite humid. So having shoes that you can alternate, like one day on, one day off, so you don't have smelly shoes, that's something that like a lot of times you don't think about until you're here. So definitely having like 2 pairs of shoes that you can alternate that are something else other than flip-flops.
water shoes are a really good recommendation. Now you can get some really good ones that are super light, that are not necessarily just needed to be used in the ocean or rivers, that you could take on an ATV tour and then you could get off and walk very briefly, or rappelling, or like you say, whitewater rafting. That's a really, really good one. And yeah, they dry obviously a lot quicker. Yeah, very, very cool. Pablo has provided me with a cool link here for hiking in Costa Rica. So if there's any of you guys out there that love hiking, check out this page. It might give you a little bit more of an insight. A couple more questions coming in for our FAQ. Samuel Partman, thanks for reaching out. Rhonda Kramer, we will follow up with those questions as well in a little bit. And don't forget, for you guys attending this webinar today, you will get an email tomorrow with a special discount for any vacation booked in the next 3 months during low season of $300. So thanks for checking in with us. Make sure to check out that email tomorrow if you are thinking of planning your trip. Hopefully that's our way of saying thank you for attending and get going in terms of getting in touch with us and get planning. Okay, so one of the big topics we touched on really briefly is the specific areas of the country. So, Lucia, when someone asks you, I really want to come in October, but I don't really want to get wet, what do you tell them?
Well, just in general, overall, I do tell them that usually October is part of our green season, right? And that most of the country does get quick 30-minute to 1-hour showers. I also like to say that personally, it's my favorite season of the year. You know, it's less crowded, you find better prices, you get much more wildlife. So first of all, just overall, don't be scared of a little bit of rain, because it actually has a bunch of perks, you know, and getting to know the country and getting to experience a bunch of things that you don't experience when it's dry season. Second, you do have some areas in Costa Rica that are a bit, you know, drier. First of all, like the Guanacaste area is part of the dry rainforest. So usually just that part of Costa Rica year round tends to be a little bit more dry, but specifically the Caribbean side during September and October is, you know, it's the peak season to go to the Caribbean. It's the dry season for the Caribbean side. Kind of like when it's raining on the Pacific, it's dry on the Caribbean. So it's the optimal time to go to the Caribbean side. It's when you have the best, you know, waters for snorkeling and swimming, no rain. So you can really enjoy the really clear waters of the Caribbean side. And the Caribbean side is really nice because it's really remote. It's not for everyone, you know, some people prefer more the big resort style. But the Caribbean side does provide a bit more of like an authentic Costa Rican feel. There's a bunch of, you know, rainforests, so there's a bunch of wildlife also in that area, but it does feel a bit more remote, which can be super nice. You know, some people are specifically looking for that.
Yeah, no, it's a lovely place to visit. Listening to you talk about that, in terms of the weather being, you know, generally drier, September, October, kind of the flip side, does that mean it rains a lot if I wanted to go to the Caribbean like February, March to mix it up with a high season trip, or not necessarily?
Well, there is a small gap during like February to April where it tends to rain a little bit less on the Caribbean side too. But usually the Caribbean side in general is a bit more volatile, you know, and like rains, you know, you always hear about like Caribbean weather and like showers, and that is quite true mostly year round on the Caribbean side. It's volatile. You know, you could get really nice weather and you could get, you know, really long showers, or it showers 30 minutes and then it stops for like 2 hours and then it showers again for another hour. That can happen in the Caribbean side. But September and October is more on the safe zone. You know, you get no showers usually in the Caribbean side, so you get to enjoy like long days, sunny afternoons, beautiful sunsets, clear waters. The Caribbean side is great for snorkeling also, so during that time there's great visibility and you can see some wildlife underwater too.
Yeah, the Caribbean side, like you say, for being in the water, some of the best visibility in the country. There are still coral reefs there, especially in the southern Caribbean side, which are stunning. They're like small swimming pools, kind of the typical Caribbean side that you imagine the Caribbean Sea, right? As you get a bit further north to Honduras and Belize. Really good spots. Emma, if I wanted to go to the Caribbean to enjoy the beaches in the green season, what might you combine that with if I wanted to do some adventure as well before going to the beach?
Yeah, you have a couple options. So for clients who, you know, are more open to spending a little bit of time traveling to get between different locations, I love pairing it with La Fortuna. I think it's still a great pairing to go from, you know, the middle of the jungle and then out towards the coast. You're just hitting a different side of the coast, but it's perfect pairing. For those who maybe don't want to do a lot of, ground traveling or prefer to kind of, do short and easy stops, you can even stay somewhere like 20 minutes outside of the airport. Up here in San Jose, like outside by Alajuela and the mountains there, we have awesome coffee tours. There's zip lining. There's, lots of lush greenery and even some wildlife that you can do very close to San Jose. That makes it easier for you to then head back to the San Jose airport and even take a domestic flight, which is about 45 minutes over to the Caribbean side. And then you get a really nice mix of both for those who maybe aren't open to doing the longer transportation that isn't for everyone.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. It does take a little while to get to the Puerto Viejo area, the Caribbean Cahuita side, 4 to 5 hours, depending on traffic, depending on the state of the roads. Sometimes, a question that did come up, you may or may not see more road closures on some of the more limited routes during the green season that we've noticed in the past. So, for example, there's only one major road, I believe it's the 32 from San Jose in the center of the country over to the Caribbean side. And because it passes through the Central Valley before you get to the Caribbean plain, we still see lots of rainfall around the central region, right, from September more or less through to November. How do we navigate the road situation? Are they that bad? And is this something I should worry about, Lucia, or not necessarily?
Not necessarily. Sometimes getting from point A to point B can be a bit of a drive, but I always like to say that it's kind of a tour within its own. You can make any stops along the way, and the views are absolutely stunning. Costa Rica is so beautiful, and just by driving, you get to see and explore a lot of the country. You also have the option of flying. We have like domestic flights that get you also from point A to point B, but driving is not a big deal. Driving long distances. Sometimes there's like some, roads that are closed, but there's always other roads, alternative roads that you can take. And, by using apps like Waze or Google Maps, you are pretty up to date with what is happening on real time. And so, if you are self-driving, that's a good app to have on your phone.
Yeah, really important to use one of those. Waze or Google is a good one just to get around any gaps.
Mm-hmm.
You brought up a really interesting subject there, which I hadn't got on my list. But Emma, if someone is asking you to take a domestic flight in the green season, how do you explain that? Because you don't want to be flying necessarily late afternoon.
Yeah, I will push. Listen, I'm not a big flyer. I don't love it, especially with small planes. It's not my favorite thing to do, but I'll do it. I do all my flights early in the morning. Like, you will not catch me on a flight after 12 p.m. here, just because, not that they're not safe, but if you're a nervous flyer, there's turbulence, right? That's when the clouds start coming in, the rain starts coming in. I have friends who specifically book their flights in the afternoon because I think they're crazy. They're adrenaline junkies. They love it. You can do what makes you feel comfortable, but if you prefer a nice, smooth flight and that's what you're comfortable with, going early in the morning is fantastic. You're at your destination before noon. You've had a safe flight. It's super comfortable, and you've avoided any road closures or anything like that, if you do ground transportation, you have to kind of have an open mind on.
Really good answers. I've shared the driving link with you guys, and I'm going to share the domestic flight article that we have. And we have a small little video as well on YouTube. I want to make sure that it's really important for you guys to consider. We're not saying don't fly. The domestic flights are really good in the country. They're flying with the Sansa Airlines. Most of their times for takeoff between the principal routes are in the morning anyway, and sometimes they're every couple of hours. Very rarely from like August to November do these airlines have many options anyway. And flying from the areas that can see more rain tends to be the Osa Peninsula, right down in the Central Pacific to the South Pacific, which where we have our primary rainforest, where you see slightly higher amount of rainfall. That's where, you may see the rain showers being a little bit more consistent for a bit longer, for maybe 1, 2 p.m. for 2 or 3 hours. So then, of course, the domestic flights are not usually taking off in really heavy weather, but because they're quite small planes, if you are flying and you do need to get back for a certain time, they actually fly around the heavy areas of turbulence whenever possible. So they do all that. It's not like they go straight through as if you're chasing hurricanes. It's not quite the case in Costa Rica. But I will share you our article on domestic flights, because it is a good one. And it does save a lot of time, instead of 4 hours or even 5 to the Caribbean, maybe you want to fly over, it saves an awful lot of time. I did want to point out one region before we move on, Guanacaste. So famous for its more arid, dry landscape, lovely sunsets, less mountainous, especially, January through to April, May. Sees lots of hot weather, quite arid land, especially when you see a lot of sun come March, April. It's not quite as green. you can see a lot of sunshine even in the green season, right? In Guanacaste, so you can see beaches. Emma, when you work with your guests coming down for clients, do they still want to go to the larger resorts, or how much do you kind of push Guanacaste and say it's okay?
It's a really big mix on what's best for your family or your group or whatever, who you're traveling with. There are times when a large resort just makes sense for your group, and that's okay. And so putting you in Guanacaste during rainy season or green season, I have no problem doing it as long as you set your expectations right? So like in the mornings, get out there, enjoy the sun, enjoy the beach. And in the afternoons, anticipate maybe an hour or two of rain, bring some board games. The hotels will have things to do as well. So honestly, like I try to do what's best for the client, for the guests, like what makes sense for their family. And so if that's the case of an all-inclusive in Guanacaste, absolutely. Like I am going to recommend it, and I will still recommend it, even if the weather isn't what we would say, is ideal or dry season.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's still the best option, and it's still going to be a really enjoyable experience.
No, for sure. And it's important to remember you are coming to the tropics, right? So even if it's, slightly a dry forest, you're still likely going to see some rain at some point. And it's really nice. Like you mentioned, it is a lovely time of year, Lucia, coming down and traveling to Guanacaste, everything's green. Yeah. So you've got these beautiful green backdrops to these amazing blue oceans, as opposed to traveling in February, March, when it has been dry for a number of weeks and everything doesn't look quite as lush. Would you say that's fair?
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Specifically getting towards March, like it hasn't been raining for a couple of months. And so it really looks kind of like yellowy, I was just recently, maybe like 2 weeks ago, in the Guanacaste area, and we're in the middle of the green season, and it was just absolutely beautiful, because also during the dry season, which is December, January, February, March, you also get more people traveling down here, and Guanacaste is the area where we find more the resorts and the all-inclusive, so it is a very popular area. So it's also nice to, visit that area where it's less crowded right now. So you do get to enjoy, more of the green scenery. Plus, it's a little bit less crowded. And so you can also enjoy, walking around the town center, stopping and getting a cocktail at the beach bar, and not having it be super crowded. So that's always super nice also about the Guanacaste area during the green season.
I think that's a really good point in general. Like you do see fewer tourists. Obviously, the kids are going back to school. You're entering the fall, right? People are getting ready for Christmas, Thanksgiving in November. So when you're in the country, not only do you have access to all this wildlife, this lush tropical surrounding, there tends to be fewer people all over the country. So it feels a little bit more private. And the same on the tours, right? As well as the hotels. So that's a huge advantage in traveling at this time of the year. Moving on to one of the big questions, of course, if you are traveling this time of year, there's a lot of deals, there's a lot of promos, especially when it comes to the resorts, to hotels. They want your business. What kind of deals, Emma, can I expect to see from hotels, and how does it vary between smaller hotels, larger hotels?
Yeah, so you'll find obviously lower rates in general between like tours and hotels, like you mentioned, but a lot of the hotels will offer what they call like, stay for 3, pay for 2, stay for 4, pay for 3. So you're getting these like free nights included, which are fantastic. So on top of a slightly lower rate, you're also getting free nights. That is super common. That's something we see in honestly small boutique hotels, but upwards to like name brand resorts as well offer things like that. Mm-hmm. It's a little bit more common to see in the boutique kind of family owned ones, but it's not to say it's only them. So if that's like, if price is a factor, which a lot of times it is, and you ask your consultant like, hey, what hotels are offering deals, we can show you like the best ones that are offering the best deals at the time, and you can choose through those as well.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I totally agree. And the great thing is if you do, of course, book with Costa Rica Vacations, you can combine many of these tours, right? So Lucia, if I want to go, we always recommend if you can go to maybe the volcano first, mix 3 days of adventure with 4 days by the sea, you could probably get a 3 for 2 and then mix that with a 4 for 3, really only pay 5 nights, but you get a 7-night package. Is that, that's quite common, right, Lucia, at this time of year?
Yeah, correct. You find these kinds of offers all around the country, not just in one specific area. So it's really a great time to combine and, check out different areas of Costa Rica, get more of the highlights in your trip, Also, with regards to flights tend to be much better priced during, the green season. And so that's something that a lot of people look into too. And so it's much more comfortable in that in that way to also travel in low season with regards to flights. And then also rental homes, rental homes and condos also offer like the long stay rates, usually during lower and green season too, better prices for longer stay. So that's something that a lot of my travelers take advantage of too.
Yeah, it's a really good point. I'm going to share with you guys our link to, we have a specific page on our website. If you are looking for deals, we have hotels that are currently running these deals. So I've just shared the URL with you there. So you can check that out if you want to. You brought up a good point, Lucia. Obviously, when you want to combine flying to Costa Rica and then mixing it up if you are traveling at this time of the year, this is a really good question that I kind of wanted to open it up to the whole year, not just green season. So Emma, in terms of the green season, how far in advance should I think about booking? Obviously, there's more flexibility, right, with availability, and pricing is a lot lower. So just for the green season alone, how far in advance should I plan my trip normally?
I would say when you're planning a trip, there's never, and this is crazy, but it's never too early. It's never too early to start booking because the rates, no matter what time of the year it is, are always going to be lower the further out that you're booking. So, if you have to do something last minute, or you're like, hey, let's go to Costa Rica and it's green season, we want to go in 2 weeks, that's also possible. It's not that it's not impossible for us to do, but your rates and your overall availability is always going to be better the sooner you start looking. This of course is like, kind of the opposite to our high season. The high season, like, we do start booking up pretty quickly. So things like that, like 100%, I would say focus on getting that early booking in. It's very hard to do last minute stuff. It's not impossible. This is what we do every day. This is our job. It's not impossible to do a last minute trip during high season, but it's definitely more challenging. Prices are going to be a little bit all over the place. So yeah, just in general as a whole, I say the earlier the better.
Yeah, totally agree. It's a really good question because I've got a kind of an extended question because this moves in to Christmas, which is the big one. Traveling at the high season. So high season for us is obviously just after the crazy 2-week Christmas break from January to April. And then also, when do you book your flights? So Lucia, in terms of flights, in my experience, there's some kind of golden area between 3 and 5 months ahead.
Mm-hmm.
But Emma's really, really accurate in terms of, Costa Rica, high season or Christmas, you need to come and book at least the vacation part to get the rooms locked in as soon as possible. When it comes to Christmas, I know we obviously get a lot of people inquiring around September and October because it's getting a bit colder up in North America, Canada, and the US, even Europe. And they're thinking, oh, let me get my Christmas plan sorted. But we probably don't have much space across Costa Rica at this time of the year. So if I was specifically thinking for a Christmas vacation in Costa Rica, when should I be looking to get those room nights booked up?
I would suggest start looking at it even, 1 year prior, like just start thinking about it, doing a bit of research, getting in contact with a, travel consultant if that's the way you want to go. Yeah. I have travelers that have already, booked for Christmas next year because just Costa Rica in general tends to be more of a boutique hotel destination. There are areas like Guanacaste that have bigger resorts and it is becoming more popular, but many areas in Costa Rica still are more of the boutique style, like in the Arenal volcano area, we find more the boutique hotel style. And so these hotels, it's not like they have 500 rooms available. And so when it books up quickly is because they're small hotels, they have limited space. And so a lot of people also ask me, like, does this mean it's going to be super, super crowded? Like, no, it just means it books up quickly because they don't have big hotels, Yeah. And with regards to flights, usually I suggest 3 to 6 months prior to arrival because I check when low-cost airlines release their schedules. And this is also then when the other airlines reduce their prices to compete with low-cost airlines. So 3 to 6 months prior is usually the sweet spot for flights.
So would you say then it's quite safe to go ahead, especially if you're traveling at Christmas, a year out is great? Mainly because you're probably going to get the property that you're looking for, the hotel, your first option instead of your second, third, or even fourth option if you're desperate, and then wait a number of months before you get your flights locked in.
Exactly. And like Emma said, like it's not impossible to book a last minute, Christmas trip. Of course not. But usually if you want to get the first pick and see everything that is available, usually 1 year in advance is great. So you could see all the different types of hotels, what one offers versus the other ones. Like, for example, in the volcano area, we have some that have hot springs on site. These obviously book quicker than the ones that don't. And so that way you just get first pick and, get what fits best for your family or your couple or whoever you're traveling with.
And Emma, it's sometimes people go, oh, well, you're just trying to push this because, that benefits you as a travel agency. It is true, right? That when we come to September and October and people are still trying to book Christmas, that we have such extreme limited availability. It's like a puzzle. So we do know that there's a couple of slots available between different properties. And if you're more flexible, leaving it a little bit later, it can work. But it just means you're not necessarily going to get what you'd probably want the first time.
Yes. And you mentioned being flexible. That is the number one thing when booking like a last minute kind of peak season festive dates, is being able to say, listen, we're okay to come a day or two later, or, extend it on the end. Those small changes make the difference of us being able to make an itinerary work or not, because we're also following what these hotels have left. And sometimes you hit a gold mine, right? Like if you're flexible, want a day on either end, and I'm able to find like 2 hotels that have just that perfect fit, you can get a killer itinerary. But having that flexibility to be like, okay, no worries, like we'll add a day, we'll remove a day, all of that can be the difference of like, being like a moderate vacation to like something that's exactly what you're looking for, and it can still be last minute.
Yeah, excellent. I'm going to share with you guys celebrating Christmas in Costa Rica, some of our travel tips. So if it helps you, you can read into more detail there in the chat. Really good points. I definitely agree with them. Lucia, in terms of traveling in the high season, so as you mentioned, Costa Rica only has a finite amount of hotels. There seems to be a lot, obviously, tourism has exploded here in the last 20, 30 years. And even more so after the pandemic, people want to get out, they want to travel. They don't necessarily want to fly all the way to Hawaii. Costa Rica is slightly cheaper, but also perhaps slightly safer than Mexico, your typical destinations in Cancun, but also a lot of different variation, right, in where you can go. If I want to travel and I'm now thinking, spring break, I'm thinking January through to Easter, when's a good time to try and get that vacation booked up?
I would say 6 to 8 months prior during these times, because it's still, part of our peak season. December all the way through March is part of our peak season, with like December and January being the peak of the peak season. But also, we get a lot of travelers during President's Weekend in February, and then a spring break, and then Easter break too. So we do get a lot of movement during those, months of the year. Usually 6 to 8 months prior is a good spot to also get, good picks on availability and few options for you to check out.
Yeah, I mean, I know, Emma, as you start planning vacations in September and October, we see a lot of hotels actually booking up already and are fully booked for spring break and even into March, right? Here, Semana Santa, the Easter break, is really, really popular as well. How common is it that tours book up? So if I want to book, 6 to 8 months is a really good point. Is that common? Should I plan my tours at the same time, or do I have flexibility in adding a few later?
So when it comes to tours, you do have more flexibility than hotels, right? I would say when we're booking with clients who are looking to come for, Christmas, I try to say, let's focus on your hotels. If we still need to chat a little bit after with tours, I think we should try to get them booked by around September, October. That's for Christmas, New Year's. Yeah. Once you're looking at like any time between like January to Semana Santa or Easter, my recommendation is, you can probably kind of get away with booking it up to like 6 weeks before you arrive. This doesn't mean that when you're here, if you decide to do a tour, last minute, it's not available. All it means is that by having kind of, we're prepping ourselves ahead of time, you are choosing the tour provider and the exact tour, you're getting first choice. And on top of that, you are getting the time that you want. So these tours run at different times throughout the day. If you get that booked first, the early morning ones are popular. If you wait until you're here, you might have to do one that's in the afternoon. If you're flexible, totally fine. But if you like to have that planned out a little bit earlier, then I definitely would recommend 6 weeks prior for high season. And a good 2.5 months out prior for Christmas, even 3.
Yeah. Really good points. Basically, just as soon as you can, if you are planning on coming to Costa Rica, because it's so popular, we tend to have a really good offering of obviously some of the better properties around the country, but with a great variation in terms of price and levels of luxury. But yeah, the sooner the better, at least if you're just inquiring, right? So get in touch with us and we'll be more than happy to help you guys out. Hey, well, guys, thank you for answering these questions. I think we've covered a lot, covering the green season, obviously promos and when should you be booking to travel. That's been awesome. Let's move on to our questions and answers session. We've got a couple of questions here. Some of these will discuss what we've been talking about today, and some of them a little bit open. So Claudia, as we started, she was asking, definitely going to Costa Rica. She's landing on September the 17th, so not too far. Plan is to spend about 2 weeks in each area, San Isidro de General, and the Central Valley, Grecia, as well as Arenal, which is a little bit more popular. Looking for lodging and transportation suggestions. 2 seniors, not $100 a night budget. So maybe 100, maybe slightly more, slightly less. Claudia, if you give us an email, we can help you out and at least get you a quote so you can have a look at our offerings. But guys, I'll throw this one to you, Lucia. If you were coming to spend 2 weeks in each area, so maybe they're thinking about actually looking for maybe a place to retire, maybe just staying for a month in the green season. San Isidro de General is an interesting area. This is to the east of the country in the mountains, so still connected to the Central Valley. Not someone that many people go. Have you traveled there yourself? Is there somewhere that you recommend? We have a couple of properties, I believe, there.
Yeah, it's more down near the Dominical and Uvita area. I really enjoy that area a lot. A lot of people shy away from it because it is like a 4-hour drive from the San Jose airport and area, but I think it's spectacular for wildlife. It's super, super nice. The beach area, like it's a marine national park, and so it just that's where you see whales and dolphins, and great for also, just hanging out at the beach. Really impressive. Like vegetation, really nice to see, and I really, really love that area.
It's that region from Dominical to Uvita off the mountains, like you say, you've got this high, beautiful green, nearly rainforest landscape, mountainous to the coast very quickly. I know that's become quite popular. A lot of real estate boom down near the Uvita way. So yeah, really lovely place for vegetation, for wildlife at this time of year. And then, of course, back to Arenal for 2 weeks. Emma, where would you stay for Arenal for 2 weeks? I mean, I guess you would mix that up with a bit of relaxation, hot springs, and a few adventure tours.
Yeah, I would say definitely, if you have a rental car, I don't know based on the situation if you will, but I would recommend looking into it for this style of a trip. Having a rental car and staying in Arenal, I would kind of maybe stay 20 minutes outside of the town of La Fortuna, away from the hotels, just to get like a real experience of what it would be like if you were to live there kind of long term. You can always go ahead and visit the hot springs and the restaurants in downtown, right, if you have a rental car. But get yourself into these little pockets and neighborhoods. It's super safe. It's a really kind of nice way to involve yourself in with the community there. So yeah, I would definitely recommend, like, you have the town and then you have one section close to the volcano just full of hotels. I would kind of go maybe towards the outskirts of the other side of the town and just find yourself like a really nice place to kind of relax. You're close enough to get into things if you need necessities or groceries and shops, but you have like that kind of sense that you're living here and what a day-to-day life would be like here.
Yeah, totally agree. Really, really good point. I will add both of your email addresses if it's not clear in the links here. So Claudia, if you do want to reach out to Lucia or Emma to get some feedback and perhaps put a potential plan together, we can do that for you. Emma, there's a question from Samuel here. 2 questions, really interesting ones. Firstly, what is the cuisine? So what's typically, Costa Rica cuisine, if you can summarize that? And the native language, well, Samuel, I can tell you it's Spanish straight away. Not exactly Castilian Spanish, the European Spanish, more Latin American Spanish. So probably similar to what you might be learning in the States or in Canada. But yeah, all the way from Mexico to Argentina, similar Spanish there as the first language. But yeah, Emma, tell me about the local Costa Rica cuisine. What's your favorite dishes?
Oh, there's so many things I love here, but obviously right off the bat, like the fruit here, the produce here is fantastic. It's unlike anything I've had anywhere else around the world. Obviously it's in abundance here, so prices are great. It's fresh. I love it. That's my number one. After that, the kind of main cuisine that you'll find is what we call here is like a casado, which is like the staple dish. It's going to come with some rice, some beans, some sort of vegetable option, maybe a little salad as well, and then a protein. So either eggs or fish or meat, chicken, something like that. And it's served on a big plate. It's super filling. It's super authentic to Costa Rica. It's delicious. There's, you know, it's not too spicy. It's not overbearing by any means, but there's always like chili or salsas that you can add onto it, pickled like hot vegetables. So it's really kind of up to you to zhuzh it up how you'd like. But that's a staple dish here that you'll find almost at any restaurant, no matter what, like high end, low end, they're going to have some version of a casado.
Yeah.
And it's just fantastic. I love it. It's easy. It's delicious. I would say I eat it like 5 times a week here. Easy.
Well, a long time ago when we were making a lot of videos, we would travel around the country and we would film local sodas with some of the best casados that we could try and find, and we would rank them depending. And the ones that always performed really well were always the small, you know, off the beaten path, small sodas, the local families' business. Really, really delicious. Casado, obviously in English means marriage. So like you mentioned, a marriage of rice and beans with a staple and a protein, some salad. Really, really good. Lucia, do you have a favorite dish?
Yeah, breakfast. Gallo
Yes.
pinto for breakfast and egg. I'm obsessed. I try to have it as much as I can. It is kind of hard to make, but not hard, but just like a longer process, you know?
Yeah.
But again, you find the best also in those sodas. Also, you find the best food there, like traditional Costa Rica food, for a very cheap price. I mean, you could get a meal there for like $6 to $10, like a very big full meal. But I would say, you know, I really like the gallo pinto, which is kind of a mix of rice and beans with a few other spices. And then, you know, they pair it up with either scrambled eggs or, you know, any form of eggs really, with, you know, fresh cheese and corn tortillas, which corn is a big thing here. And so everything corn. We love everything corn here.
I am a huge fan of gallo pinto. Technically translated as the painted rooster, I think. Would that be correct, Pablo? I'm not sure. Nobody really calls it in English. But yeah, that's as close as I got. It is delicious.
Yeah, gallo is like the male, the rooster, yes. But also, you guys, I should mention rice and beans in the Caribbean. It's pretty good. It's also like a version of the gallo
Also,
pinto, but it's spicy.
Yeah.
And overall, they have a more Afro-descendant culture, so it's a different cuisine, and it's my favorite, the Caribbean.
Yeah,
You
rice,
will find
rice and
some
beans.
places in San Jose as well that they have Caribbean food, but the best is over there. You should go.
Yeah, 100%. Whenever you're on the Caribbean side, you can, like Pablo says, you can find rice and beans in different places around the country. But if you're actually there on the Caribbean, there's a couple inside Puerto Viejo town and Cahuita as well, which is really, really, really good. Thank you for the question, Samuel. I have definitely got a question for you, Lucia, because I think I've got one of your clients here, Rhonda Kramer. So she says, Lucia helped us plan a trip. We're coming in March the 4th to the 9th, 2025. How good will the fishing be then, as they've previously fished in August, and it was amazing?
Well, depending on the area, you know, fishing can be good all around Costa Rica, just depends on where you will be. You know, we have offshore fishing and inshore fishing. Offshore fishing is more, you know, like marlin, tuna, dorado, sailfish, and then inshore fishing more like rooster fish is super popular here. In the areas of Jaco and Manuel Antonio, you get great inshore fishing, great boats that get near the rocks and have it's great for rooster fishing.
Yeah.
But then also, it's also great for offshore fishing during that time. December all the way through like March is like peak season for offshore fishing in like the Jaco area and the Manuel Antonio area. You get great marinas up there. But also in the Guanacaste area, inshore fishing is super good. And there's great seasons for offshore fishing up there too. You just have a bit more of like popular, you hear more of like the Los Sueños Marina near the Jaco area, but you know, in the Guanacaste area, it's great too.
Great answers. And Rhonda, watch this space. We're certainly going to do a sport fishing webinar, or at least tag it on with another subject in the coming months. We've got a number of great sports fishermen. And I think Lucia set you up really well. Early March, it's actually like you mentioned, February and March is the time that you have a lot of tournaments, sport fishing tournaments that are going out of the Central Pacific from Jaco and Quepos. So like you say, it's probably the best time of the year. So Rhonda, if you had a good time in August, be prepared. March is going to be great, hopefully. Thank you very much, Claudia. I see that you've sent us your email. We will reach out to you. You're looking for relocation scouting. Well, for sure, the Central Valley to the east and towards Arenal is going to be a great spot to come and have a look around. And being in Costa Rica for a month is going to give you a really good idea as well about where to go. So thank you for getting those questions in. We've got a couple more here. Wendy was asking, are there areas better to visit during the green season? Maybe you get perks during this time of the year that you don't get others. So obviously we've touched on the Caribbean being slightly drier. That's a good question. Are there more deals in specific areas, Emma? Does it change in the Caribbean, or is that just the case all the way around the country?
So as far as like price deals and stuff like that, if you are not afraid of the rain and you're open to having some of those rain showers, the Central and Southern Pacific have incredible deals. You are going to find like the lowest rates in all of those hotels there and tours. I used to live in Manuel Antonio. I lived there for a few years. I survived a few rainy seasons. I like it. I do. I used to really enjoy it. As long as you have, a little bit of time to get what you want to do and during the day, there's something so relaxing about just listening to the rain and enjoying your time there. If you're not afraid of it, there's restaurants, there's live music. You can just go hunker down somewhere. So if you're looking and price is a big factor again, like that's going to have the best deals in the country during rainy season. And it's nice. I love it. I really love it there during that time of the year. Like Lucia said, it's one of my favorite times of the year.
Yeah. Yeah, great answer. And it's nice that you can still find some of those deals on the Caribbean when it's technically nice and sunny over there as well. Something else that was asked here that we did touch on in terms of questions, domestic flights. If I have a group of 4 or 5, so maybe a slightly larger family, is it still cost effective to take a domestic flight for maybe 5 people over a transfer? How would you answer that, Lucia?
Well, definitely, the smaller vans that we offer fit 1 to 8 people. So if you are a larger group, approximating like the 8 mark, usually a van is going to be a bit more cost effective. The domestic flight is a bit more time effective. But a lot of people like myself and Emma don't like flying with small airplanes. I've done it, like Emma said before, if I need to get from point A to point B quickly, I do it. It's not a big deal. I try to remind myself it's super safe.
Yes.
And they won't take off if it's dangerous. But yeah, usually vans tend to be more cost effective for larger groups.
Excellent. Good to know. Good to know. Well, we're coming up on time here, so I'm going to do the final question. This came in from Rita. Rita, thanks for your question. And I'll throw this over to you, Emma. Can you provide a brief overview of the different regions of Costa Rica and a few potential trips for 2 weeks for a family? I've never been to Costa Rica, and I want to get a good sense of different regions. So obviously, when you look at 2 weeks, that's a great time, right? We get a lot of European travelers coming over, especially from the UK as well. So you can usually visit at least 3, potentially 4, if you're willing to move around with, 3 or 4 days in between. What would be a standard vacation that you would put together for 2 weeks, to give you a real good experience of Costa Rica?
Yeah, so like you said, 2 weeks is awesome. I would definitely push like 3, even 4 locations. What my recommendation would be, and what is really popular, is a little bit of time inland and a little bit of time along the coast. So getting you a little bit of both. I would probably recommend for a first timer, you want to see the popular areas, like they are popular for a reason, right? So somewhere like La Fortuna, Arenal, that's going to be somewhere that I would highly recommend starting with. Doing a little bit of time in Monteverde, a couple of days in the cloud forest. Since you have the extra time, absolutely, I would add that in. I think that's a really fantastic place to go. Sometimes if you don't have enough time, you can just have a week, you'll skip it because it's a little bit similar to La Fortuna, but it really is worth a visit when you have the 2 weeks. It's really fantastic. And you don't know until you go, like how special it is. And then from there, we either choose like the northern coast or the central and southern Pacific coast normally for the beaches. Again, this is kind of something that you would discuss with your consultant a little bit more, just so that we get a better idea of what are your priorities. What do you want to do? What do you want to see at the beach? Do you like to just, soak up the sun? Do you want to still have some adventure tours? And from there, we'll kind of decide which beaches makes the most sense. But definitely 100%, we're going to be doing like La Fortuna, Monteverde, and a coastal area.
Awesome. I agree. And the only thing is, if you do want to do it slightly, maybe 3, 3, and 4, you could potentially throw in the Osa Peninsula for those people that really want to be off the beaten path, truly immersed in wildlife, the primary rainforest, because you can mix that from like the Manuel Antonio area. You can head a bit further south, but then you do have to take a domestic flight flying back just to get back to San Jose, nice and easy, maybe one night in San Jose. But in my opinion as well, if you do have 2 weeks and you can explore the rainforest, you want to see some wildlife, that would be the place to go. Hey guys, well, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been great to chat with you. I hope lots of people who are watching found this helpful. Please don't forget to get your questions in. You've got Emma's and Lucia's email here in the chat. So if you do want to reach out to either one of them directly to help plan your potential Costa Rican vacation, please do get in touch with them. We've got some exciting webinar topics coming up in the next couple of months leading up to Christmas, including all things adventure, top tours and locations, things you must do, how to plan your vacation for the high season, some of the top hotels and resorts in the country, which one is right for you, as well as the best beaches, and maybe a larger subject of how to get around in terms of public transport, private transport, domestic flights in detail. And you guys touched on sport fishing as well. There's a lot to get through. So thank you very much for joining. For those of you that attended, make sure to watch your inbox tomorrow for the emails to get your promo discount if you are looking to plan your Costa Rica vacations very soon. And hopefully we will see you guys next month for the next one. Thank you very much. Take care, guys.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.